If you lost everything and you can only keep one thing, Akash, what's the one thing you would keep?
The answer that comes to my mind immediately is physical health, my physical health.
Really? Why physical health?
If I lost everything, but I still had my body healthy, I think I could build everything else back up.
Okay, that's a really great answer. Unfortunately, there's a better answer. And the one thing you want to keep control of is your thoughts. Because if you lose control of your thoughts, you really have lost everything. And in this book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, in A Man's Further Search, I think it's called Deeper Search or Further Search. He has two of them. And what he talks about, even when he was going through all that torture and all that other stuff, by keeping control of his thoughts, that's the thing that allowed him to last through those many years being tortured by, the Nazis and all this other stuff. And what I find important about that is throughout my life, the most important thing I've ever been able to keep control of, even if I had something or not had something, is what? My thoughts. My thoughts is the most important thing, because you can create a prison or you can create a nirvana depending on how you control your thoughts. And the last example of this is, let's take a person like Nelson Mandela, who's one of my personal heroes. He was in prison, and I wasn't there when he was in prison, but from what I hear, for many, many years before he finally walked out of prison, his cell door was never closed. It was always open. So he always had the choice to leave. He just had to denounce or renounce or whatever that word is, say he didn't believe what he said he believed. And he willingly stayed there in a prison, physical prison, but he was free in his mind because he always had the opportunity to leave. So if you take that one step further, when people look at fitness, I know that's what you do, a lot of people have this pre-set up structure of what fitness should look like. Well, this is what it should be. And they prison themselves by thinking that being in shape must be hard. It's not hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. And what I mean by that, there are things you can do, a few simple things you teach people to do, boom, 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 boom. And it's simple not to do those things. And the difference between being successful and being failure hinges on your ability to do simple things consistently, not difficult things consistently.
And how do people take control of their thoughts? Or what are some key things that worked for you in the past where you've gone through periods of struggle, but you've managed to keep hold of your thoughts? Because we see it a lot where people's thoughts can then lead them to thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or maybe this is too difficult for me because of X, Y, Z. How do you manage to maintain your control of thoughts in those scenarios?
Well, here's a funny thing, right? I saw a shirt one time, my neighbor, I never saw the shirt before. It said, I'm a Mexican, not a Mexicant. So I had to adapt that. I'm an African, not an African. So when people look at things, once you say that word can't, your brain will construct methods for you not to be able to do what you want to do. See, and if you say I can, your brain will construct ways of saying, let's figure it out and make it happen. Because if you got any siblings or somebody who you hold dear to your life, and you found out they're in New Zealand and you have 96 hours to get there, or they're going to throw them into the ocean with a cement block on their foot, but you have to get there with $10,000. If I took everything away from you, Akash, will you still be able to get there? Yes. Now, here's the interesting part. Yeah. You notice you didn't say, well, I don't have any resources. I don't have any money. You didn't say any of that, right? Because the dream is big enough and clear enough so that you will figure out ways to make it happen. So if that means you got to sell your car, if that means you got to sell your computer equipment, that means you got to sell your weight equipment, if that means you got to sell your clothes, you're going to do whatever it takes in that 24 hours, beg friends or whatever, to get that money together so you can buy a plane ticket and get to New Zealand. So when you think of being an African, in my case, not an African, right? That's what's going to force you to figure out ways to get things done. So I always said, this is the goal. There may be obstacles, but as long as I can see the horizon, I can keep going. And as you get closer to the horizon moves out further. So when I think of kin, I think of ways I can do things, not the ways I can't. Because if it doesn't work, I just try something different. But I never said that's impossible. I realized that impossible, if you think about it, if you put a little apostrophe between I and M, that means I'm possible, not impossible. So impossible. Like it's possible I can do it, but if it doesn't work, what do I lose? A little bit of time? I can watch the game on Sunday, watch a football game or something. No. So what? If I try and I go for my dreams and I fail, my biggest fear is at the end of my life, whenever that is, I won't be able to look in my kids' eyes and tell them I did everything to make their lives easier. If I can't say that, then I'm a failure. So I always just try to, that's the thing that keeps me pressing on now, is to leave a legacy for my kids that they can be proud of. So when I lose it, if I lost everything today, if I can keep in possession of my thoughts, I can build it back. But the main thing you got to keep control of is your thoughts. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Mm. You said you've learned this over the years. Talk us through some of the scenarios where you've had to keep control of your thoughts in order to stay positive, move forward, find opportunities to kind of come back and find a way back to where you were before.
Okay, so let's start. Let's make it easy.
Let's
When I was a
rewind.
teenager. So when I was a teenager, I was an athlete. So in the hood, you got to be good at something. So you got to be an athlete, right? Selling drugs was out for me because the drug dealers decided that Korby can't sell drugs. So,
How did they decide that?
I don't know. Probably because some of the big drug dealers at the time were close to some of my family members, and they said we're not going to put Korby in those situations. That's the story I tell myself. Or they probably saw a spark in me that was different from everybody else on the street, because they let my friends sell drugs who were sitting right next to me, but not me. So who knows? So the one thing I realized is when I started studying Kung Fu, I wasn't very good. I practiced a lot, but I wasn't very good. And what I realized is when my teacher, Sifu Bruce, told me, he says, you have to limit, listen closely to this part, gosh, people miss this. And whoever listens to this podcast, remember this, you have to limit the number of things you're trying to be good at. What? I was 12 at the time. I don't even know what that means. Like, what you mean limit? I'm trying to learn as much as I can. No, he said, you need to limit the number of things you're good at. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He says, I know I teach the, dragon style and praying mantis and crane and tiger and snake, praying mantis. You got all these styles you can use, but pick one style and master that basic construct. So for me, it turned out to be tiger crane. Those worked well for me. And that's what I specialized in, even though I could do all the other things, but I did tiger crane really, really well. So well that I became a grand champion. But when I limited, and this is the most important thing, the number of things I wanted to be great at, that's what started to help me. So when I got setbacks, even when I was coming up the ranks in Kung Fu, when I got setbacks, I can always fall back and say, okay, where did my system break down? Because every system has a weakness. But your job as an athlete or in life is to create a situation where you minimize the damage from your weaknesses and you maximize the appearance of your strengths. So for me, I had a really good, I like to call it low kick. I had a really good low to medium kick. I didn't like to kick people in the head because it takes a long time, me being short. I really got to put myself out there to try to kick somebody in the head. So I realized if I learn how to kick from the sternum and below really, really effectively, kick people in their ribs and their kidneys, that's going to hurt a lot. And then their head comes down and I can punch them in the head. That works for me. So I mastered a way of doing that over the years that became super effective, which made me really effective in fighting. And here's the funny thing. My opponents, and this is the most important things, my opponents always knew that I would be using these kicks, and I still kicked them with them. So get so good that at one thing or two things that people, even if they know what you're up to, it's still going to work. So when I got setbacks in Kung Fu, I realized these are how you overcome them, by keeping it simple. So as I transferred that to life, when I got setbacks, I realized, okay, so what am I trying to do? And I realized every time I try to complicate my life, things start to break very, very rapidly. When I simplify my life, things work better. So the second example that I can give is when I went to college. I was doing well in college, and I had a good friend, Lorenzo White. It's fine. We're friends now again. And he had one of the best cars back then in 1989. So he had an Acura Integra. If you're from America and Fast and the Furious culture, that was the car to have in the late 80s, early 90s. But he was one of the first people I ever saw had those neon lights on the car, and the car glows, and the 20-inch rims, and the super thick tires, and the super loud system on the legal side of the law, not on the pharmaceutical side. He wasn't a pharmaceutical sales rep. You know what I mean? And every weekend we used to get stopped when we go to college parties. Every single weekend we got stopped. And I said, well, we're gonna get stopped again. So this one weekend, he just decided he didn't want to stop. So we get over the hill and the cops are like quarter mile or so behind. He just floors it. So by the time they get over the hill, we're like way in the distance. So they start chasing us. We clearly lost the cops. I said, hey, Renzo, you can slow down. He says, no, we need to get to Route 1. Just think of the Autobahn or any major highway where you live. And on the last part, it's a little sharp curve on the way to Route 1, and it had rained earlier, and we slipped out, and we hit a telephone pole at 65, 70 miles an hour. Telephone pole comes out the ground so fast that it didn't even break. The cement foundation of the telephone pole came out the ground, fell on the car right between us, sheer luck. And by the time we came to, it was cop on the left, cop on the right with their guns drawn, said, don't move. I'm like, my knee is trapped. And, you know, chaos ensued. And finally, they sat us on the ice cold ground because it was at the end of January. And I can remember sitting there asking for my phone call. It's like, shut up, we give you a phone call we want. I'm like, hey, you can call him now. And, you know, I'm related to Ronnie Haskins, who was the chief of police at Highland Park. And his father was the chief of police in Jersey City. They started treating us a little bit different. And here was my first game-changing moment of my life. Ambulance came, and they put us in an ambulance. We go to the hospital, and as we get to the hospital, the surgeons on duty are leaving. And they said, well, who are these people? He said, well, these are the people from the accident over there on Plainfield Avenue. They said, oh, we was going home. We thought they were dead. They hit a pole of 75 miles an hour. Oh, so they thought we were dead. So they was going home. So I realized that under normal circumstances, I probably shouldn't have made it. So that was the first chance I got. And then about 4 months later, they invited me to leave Rutgers at the time, AKA kick me out, because they said we stole the car. And to this day, I'm 50. And to this day in New Brunswick, they still make fun of me because that's not the way I roll. They said, Korby, remember that time you was in the paper for stealing the car? So even at 50, they still make fun of me. Karan and Kelly to this day still make fun of me. And that's how I got into sales, because when I finally left, May Lee at the time, she said, hey, Tony is doing a call. I'm not a call, 1989. He's doing a meeting about how to sell water filters. I said, water filters? That's interesting. So I started selling water filters at the time, and that's how my sales career started. And kind of like the rest is history. But that's actually how my sales career started as a result of getting kicked out of college. Years later, I went back to college, but that's how I really started.
You stumbled upon selling water filters.
Yep. I was
You
selling
figured
water
out you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, I was pretty good. At first, it used to take me about 300 doors, knocking on doors to sell one. Eventually, I got to 1 out of 90, but then I started building a sales team, and that kind of took off from there. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's
And
how
then
I got into sales.
how did it progress from there?
Whew, I did really well with sales. And then in 1992 and 1993, I was just right around 93, the company went out of business, and I got an Amway. Most people who's over 30 probably heard the company Amway. I did well with Amway for a little while. And in 96, 97, I got in a company called Lifetronics. It's another sales company. Did well. I did really well with them because it was all phone prospecting, so I could really do it really fast. So I made some good money with Lifetronics. And at that point, I started learning about call centers and all the other kind of stuff, started getting into the Jay Abraham stuff. And I was doing sales coaching at that point too. So I was kind of coaching network marketers. That whole thing started to unfold, but then I learned about Jay Abraham. I started learning about his techniques, and so I started coaching. And I've been doing business coaching since then. I had some good success at Merrill Lynch in the corporate arena, and I was one of Chet Holmes' top salespeople for a few years until he got sick and sold to Anthony Robbins. And I left the company at that point and been doing really well. Then like 2015, I went with Taki Moore for a few years, and then I did 7-Figure Mastermind for about 3 years, and now next phase. But the one thing that all of these things have in common is they all mark different transition points in my life. I left Chet Holmes right at the point where I was going through a divorce, and everything went kind of like sideways, and ultimately ended up like it was hard to find a good job at that point because it was right during the height of the recession, quote unquote. Sometimes that's in our mind. I kept controlling my thoughts, but I lost everything on the physical plane. So I lost everything I had, ended up sleeping on my mother's floor for about a year and a half. That was tough. And I remember my brother, God rest his soul. And the reason why I like to call you Cash, Akash, is my brother's nickname was Cash.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
he was looked up to by everybody. So when I call you Cash, that's an honor, actually. I'm not making fun of you. That's an honor to be called Cash because everybody in New Brunswick loved my brother. So he said, John, why are you reading those big head books? Because my family always made fun of me for reading books. And if you look, this is just a sample of some of my favorite books. But I've read more than 2,000 or 3,000 books when I stopped counting. And I've been through thousands of hours of seminar training and implemented it in the real world and figured out what works and what doesn't. And the thing that makes it hard to come back is when you get into a situation. So like, let's take when I went to Merrill Lynch and left in 2005, 2006, right before the crash. And I started putting it back together. And then I went to Chet Holmes, did well with him for 4 years. And then I went through a divorce and kind of lost everything. Is we confuse what's happening in the physical space with the reality going on in our inner space. So Bob Proctor said it best. He said, thoughts are things, but not yet. And what he means by that, a thought's not nothing, but it's not something yet. It's in that in-between part. So if you lose something, right? Here's the most important thing. If you lose something, you only lost the physical expression of what that represented. You didn't actually lose what you gained from getting that thing. So I took each one of those losses and experiences. I kept all the knowledge though, which allowed me to build it back faster. So, but you can't be attached to status. That's the issue. So I want to get back to where I was if it looks this way. So you have people in our industry that success needs to look a certain way. And if it doesn't look that way, they don't feel successful. So what I had to do was say, okay, how can I get it back in a way that I can keep it this time? So when I was trying to get back on my feet, I took jobs anywhere. I did odd jobs. I wasn't tied to the fact that I was successful before. See, because Les Brown always say, used to bees don't make no honey. And I always laughed at that, but now that I'm older, I understand what he means. So nobody cares who you used to be, and nobody cares who you're going to be. And I always say, you're going to laugh at this one, behind every successful husband is a surprise mother-in-law. So, so yeah, because, most of the time, unless you're already successful, when you tell them, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, whoever you dating, it don't matter. So you can look at your wife. They're like, I don't know about this freelance and entrepreneurial, because I know your culture highly prizes education, so you have to figure out how does success look to me. And for me, people say, Korby, are you rich? I always say yes. And they say, well, what do you base that on? I can pay all, and this is a good definition. If you can pay all your bills and you have control of your thoughts, you have a little bit of money left over to help some other people, and you have a little bit of money to save, you're rich. And we get tied up of having like millions of dollars of massive businesses and this kind of stuff. But most of the people who hear this podcast, if you could turn your faucet to the left and the water comes out immediately, you're richer than about 3 billion people on planet Earth. If you could just hit a button in your toilet and the water disappears and goes into sewage, you're richer than about 3 billion people on Earth. If you got $1,000 in the bank, you're richer than 5 billion other people on Earth. If you can lose your job or whatever you're doing today and live for 2 months, you're richer than 6 billion people on Earth. Because in America, if a person's income stopped within about 8 weeks, they probably have to be homeless. So here's my new definition of wealth that I learned from Robert Kiyosaki years ago. Wealth isn't measured in money, it's measured in time. So if everything stopped, for whoever's listening to this, how many months would it take for you to have to go back to work? That's how rich you are. Because if I had 10 million, I could probably live 25 or 30 years on that if I didn't make another dime. If Puffy had 10 million, he could probably live 9 months. So it's not the amount of money, it's the amount of time you can use your resources before you have to work. So when I started building things back up, I said, I'm not thinking about millions no more. I'm thinking about separating myself from having to be on that floor again. And how much time can I put between me and having to sleep on the floor again? That became my ultimate goal. It wasn't about money. So I lived my life in a way where I can extend that time and still have time to do the things I want. So when I build it back, Akash, here's the 3 things I did. 1, I focused on my ultimate outcome. Where do I want to go? 2, I focused on what 1 or 2 actions I could take today to bring me closer to that vision. See, we get caught up as entrepreneurs of having this well thought out plan. I believe in having a well thought out goal and a very flexible plan. Because if I say, hey, Akash, where you want to be 12 months from now in your business, you'll say here. I say, well, let's draw out a plan to look that way. Within 3 months, that plan is no good no more because market conditions have changed and everything has changed. But if the goal is the same, my goal is to get the next 6 weeks clear, and let's try to focus on that. And then once we get to week 4, we start working on the next 6 weeks, getting that clear, and just keeping those small steps in front of us with the ultimate goal in mind. So when I that's the second step, and then the third step is realizing that it's going to probably take twice as long as my guess. So if I think I could do it in a year, it's probably going to take 2 years. If I believe it, and here's the problem with guessing. Guessing is based on your ability. Because if I want to get in shape, like really good shape, like you, and you want to get in shape, if you started at my space with your knowledge and my knowledge, you can get in shape faster than me. Because you have a library of knowledge that I don't have access to. You understand tension and time under tension and maximum sets or how much cardio and when to eat, time and nutrition and how to have cheat days and when to do alcohol or no alcohol. You understand? I don't understand that. Hopefully I get my 14,000 calories in this week. That's it. That's my whole extent. Go to the gym and maybe do some non-exercise walking or whatever. That's all I know. But compared to your knowledge, you can dial all that in. And even with the same set of metrics, you can get me results faster. That's the power of having a person like you to guide people when they want to get somewhere versus me just trying to go to the gym and figure it out. So 1, get clear where you want to go. 2, be flexible in your planning. And 3, realize it's going to take way longer than you thought. And if you do those 3 things, you can really start to move in the direction that you want to move in quickly.
Some of the biggest areas people struggle on, myself included in various stages, is the strive for power, status, or ego, right? Or fame. They all come in various aspects and they may manifest in different ways. You gave a good example of when you want to build back up, you wanted to avoid the status game and avoid thinking what other people's success version was. How did you gain clarity on that? And what advice would you give people who are struggling with the strive for power, status, ego, fame, etc.?
Okay. The best advice I can give you is your portion is your portion. A story that I tell is you had a student at the Kung Fu Institute in China, and he would, every day at the end of practice, they would go eat rice and vegetables. And he would notice that the master's bowl was a lot smaller than his bowl. And after a few years, he went to the master and said, I noticed that your bowl is a lot smaller than mine's, but you always have a little bit left over when you get done eating. And when I eat everything in my bowl and go back for seconds. He says, okay, great. I want you to think about that for a few months and come back and ask me again. So a few months go by and same thing. And he looked at the student and said one thing. He says, here go the most important thing. You have to live your life where you can enjoy what you have and have a little bit left over. And what I do with my leftovers is I go out and feed other people who can't afford to get what we have. And in your case, you take everything you have and then you eat more than your fair share of it. So when you're chasing power and status and fame, you want more than what you deserve. Yeah, and what I mean by that is there's enough for everybody. Because his bowl is clearly bigger than his master's. And then what he did for the next week or two when he was eating, he started looking around and he realized that everybody had different size bowls. And the people who were content with the bowl that they had were happy with their portion. And the people who weren't content were the ones going back to get more and more. So what happens is this, when you become greedy, the moral of the story is your portion is enough for you. And you don't need another portion because your portion is enough and it's enough to share. But if you can't appreciate what's in your bowl, you're never going to get full. So when I look at status and I realize this is my bowl, and I actually keep a picture of a bowl on my wall, like a basic bowl. And people come to my apartment, they look at the bowl, what's that picture for? I say, it's about my portion. That's my bowl. Your bowl is different. Your bowl might be bigger, your bowl might be smaller. But I can't base my life on your bowl, Akash. You have a whole different set of gifts than I have. I can't base my bowl on Wayne's life. I have to just base it on mine because this is the bowl that the universe has given to me. And my job is to be a good caretaker of what's in my bowl. I can't look at your bowl and your bowl. And when I tell people, hey, my ultimate goal is to have a business that does a little over $1 million a year. That's it. And they go, really? You can do that easy. You can do way more than that. See, that's somebody else's goal for you. But I realized based on my lifestyle and the way I want to live and to have the lifestyle I want, a little bit over $1 million a year is right where I want to be. I don't need a $10 million business. I don't need a $15 million business because now I'm trying to keep up with something that's not me. So being true to yourself and what you really believe you're called to do will release the amount of pressure on you at all times. And that's what we forget as entrepreneurs. We put pressure on ourselves to compete with somebody like, I can't compete with Wes Watson. I can't compete with Bedros. But that's not my goal either, because I have a different set of skills from those people. You know, those people understand fitness at a super high level. Great. I understand marketing at a super high level. I understand how to get people to move, how to get people to buy, how to get people to sell. I understand that. So why don't I just use that instead of trying to teach people how to be in the best shape of their life? Use what I already know to grow. Whoever's listening to that, write that down. Use what you already know to grow to the next level. And if you do that, that's what's going to take you to the next level. Not this other madness that people believe is going to take them to the other levels, because that's not in your bowl.
Mm.
So the bowl is the things you know. Your job is to grow what's in that bowl. You
What's the
can
next
water
size?
other.
Go on.
No, I'm saying you can water, you can give something to other people's bowls, but just take care of what's in here and it'll multiply for you.
How can people, what exercise can people use to figure out what their bowl is?
Oh, it's simple. We could do this live with you, just have some fun. If I gave you, I gotta give you a bigger number. If I gave you $20 million taxes paid, what would you do for the next 3 years? Caveat, I have a special CEO take care of your business, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's not going to go anywhere. But if you could do anything you want for 3 years, I gave you 20 million taxes paid, what would you do?
The thing that rings to my mind is some element of what I'm already doing on a
Okay.
So without the things in my work per se, there are things I like doing and there's things I just have to do, right?
Yeah.
And the things I like doing, I love doing, which is usually areas where, you know, I'm coming up with creative ideas, I'm helping people become better versions of themselves, I'm big picture head in the clouds. I think I'm good at seeing things before they come. I could just sit there all day long coming up with things for either the existing business or other people's whatever they want to do, right? So I would just do more of that. That's why naturally it always just comes to me. I just naturally can look at things and look at people and be like, oh, we thought about this or thought about that. So I don't think it would be too dissimilar to what I do. I would just get rid of all the things I feel like I have to do and feel like obligations right now.
Okay, so here's the magic question for you then. What do you need to do to get to that state where you can only do those things? And you'll have the 20 million when you get there. See, so you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about that now live. Yeah. But think about those things you really love to do. And you got to ask yourself, how can I spend 8 out of the 10 hours a day I work doing those things? That's the way you multiply your happiness, and then your income will follow. See, because here's the interesting part. One of my favorite parts of The Pursuit of Happiness is with Will Smith. Hopefully I don't get slapped for saying this. Just kidding. in The Pursuit of Happiness, my favorite part is he says, when he wrote The Pursuit of Happiness, how did he know to put the word pursuit in there? And that's always kind of like irritated me. Like, how did he know to put the word pursuit in there? And I thought about it. Because happiness is fleeting. Because I can remember at some point, let's say if it was $1 million, if you had $1 million dream or 500,000 or 100 members, when you hit the 100 members, you were happy for like 10 minutes. And then a new vision came up of 200 or 300 or 400 or whatever it is. So happiness is fleeting. That's why it's a pursuit of happiness. But joy can be permanent. See, so happiness is the high points. Joy is the everyday point. So if you get joy from what you're doing, you'll get your high points of happiness, but focus on the joy of doing your craft. So for me, I love to coach. This is what I love to do, like coach. So I get a lot of joy from that. Now, there are times where I hear somebody like you have a crazy success story that gives me a peak of happiness, which just feeds my joy to know that I'm doing the right thing. So the thing is, as an entrepreneur, you want to seek joy and take your peaks of happiness, because joy can be permanent. Happiness is always fleeting. So you pursue your joy and take happiness as it comes.
I remember reading Naval Ravikant said, happiness is just peace in motion.
I like that.
Which I really liked. It's the pursuit of, but it's that peace and joy, which is really the goal, right?
Yeah, that's why I say you got to learn how to keep your highs low and your lows high. Because as an entrepreneur, we're on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So what happens is, hey, I had a really good month. I made a gajillion, and this month's terrible. I only made 8 million. Wait a minute. Let's just back that up 10 years. How much was you making a month 10 years ago? $50. Okay, well, if you're making $1 million a month and that's terrible, that's not good. So you got to learn how to understand that there will be peaks and there will be valleys. And if you mentally focus on the joy of your work, still have the goals, but if you focus on that joy, your business will overall continually to slowly level up like this, so that low and high point gets higher over time, but you're better equipped to deal with those highs versus those lows. And that's where people as entrepreneurs, and me too, even with my fitness, I was on this cruise for 14 days. It was great. It's amazing. Apparently my waist grew by 2 inches during the cruise. I don't know. So I got to get back on it, get rid of those 2 inches and keep going towards my goal. But here's the thing, I realized that it's okay for 2 weeks to experience joy and peace for those 2 weeks. But now I'm home. My body has reminded me it's now time to get back to work. And I'm just getting to the point where I find peace and joy in working out. Because, and here's a big one for you. You only have to until you want to, then you don't have to anymore. And so right now I'm still in that have to work out stage. See, you want to work out. You don't have to work out anymore. So if you go a week without working out, you feel like dirty, like you haven't taken a shower in 5 days.
Yeah.
So you get to work out. I have to work out. So I have to work out to the point where I get to work out. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm getting closer to that get to work out stage.
Yeah, interesting. When did you realize you had that state of joy in your day-to-day life? What sort of, like, do you have a breakthrough moment? Do you have?
I did. I remember, like, I can remember clear as day. It's about right before COVID hit, ironically, right? I was scheduled to go on a cruise right when they shut everything down.
You like your cruises, don't you?
I love cruising for a couple reasons, because you can't do anything on a cruise that's work related. Because think about this, if your internet went completely down for 3 weeks, that would be the most stressful 3 weeks of your life. Because everything we do as entrepreneurs is what? It's built around the internet. Everything we do is built around the internet. You can't manage your company without the internet, because all those people don't live in your house, your team. They live all over the world. So imagine no internet. That's it. So when you're on a cruise, internet sucks. So it moves like this. Old fashioned, 256 kbps. You young people don't even know what that is. So that was fast when I was young. When I was your age, that was fast internet, 250 kbps, not even 1 meg download. That was like top of the line. And that's top of the line on a cruise ship, most cruise ships. So you can't do anything. You might be able to check Facebook, not videos, but so you got to relax on a cruise. So the reason why I relax on a cruise is because I love cruising, because it forces me to slow down. So I got to go back to paper-based books. I got to go back to notepads, and I could just relax. So it forces you to take a vacation. Because if I go to the Four Seasons in St. Kitts, it's beautiful, but I got access to the internet. What does that mean? When you're asleep, I can work until you wake up, and then I can stop working. So on a cruise, you can't do that. There's no cheat code. You just got to relax. So the 13-day, 14-day cruise I was on, I got the chance I wrote like 40 pages of notes. You know, because my mind's free. I don't have internet. I don't have feeds and social media clogging it up. So now I can be creative again. So 40 pages of notes resulted in me being able to basically build out a whole course while I was on a cruise, relaxing, sitting on the deck, got a little notebook and a pen with me. That's it. You know, got my phone just to take pictures, but no internet. And then, you know, every so often I got internet, got it kind of sketched out, writing new ideas in here, and it was fun. But if I'm at Bali, I can get my computer out. Now watch this. You're going to understand this. Hey, let me just put this in real quick. And 4 hours later, you're still at the computer. And Chandi's like, I thought we was on vacation. And you go, well, this right here gives us the opportunity to take these vacations. But we're not on vacation. You're working. So are we on vacation or are you working? So at a cruise, and this is the most important thing. Entrepreneurs, listen to this. Write this down, whatever you're doing. When you're at work, work. When you're at play, play. So here's the best way to put it. Have you ever went through a period, and I'm sure because you're successful now, where you were just exhausted for like months on end? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Even though you want to admit it publicly, you were like,
yeah, 100%.
I'm tired. You know why?
Yeah.
Because when you were working, you were fantasizing about relaxing with your wife. And then when you were relaxing with your wife, you were thinking about work. So you never got a chance to mentally unplug. So that's one of the things that kills entrepreneurs long term. So you're even with working out. That's why you see people, I love contest people, like in your, you know, I don't know what you call those people, contest people. You know the term. Yeah, bodybuilders. All right. So they work hard up to prep season. And after that prep season, whatever, and they compete. And then, in my opinion, they should come off of their diets and just relax for a few months and then start the process again. But I know people come off the competition, but they got to work on their shoulders. And so they burn themselves out. See, even the finest cars in the world have to make pit stops. Why don't we do that for ourselves? So even in a 500-mile race, they make 4 pit stops. Why don't we do that for ourselves? That's why entrepreneurs burn out. We just work, and then mentally. So even when you're not working, you're watching the movie with Chandi, but in your brain, you're saying, okay, so if we change this workout to this, and we add these sets, then we add this meal here, then we do this and do this. And she go, did you like the movie? And you say, yeah, that was great. You have no idea what happened on the movie. None. And you're praying in your mind, please don't ask me a question. Please don't ask me a question. Please don't ask me a question. And you're dying for her to go to the bathroom so you can write down the ideas you've been thinking about the whole movie. That's never happened to you, I'm sure. Yeah, but if you're a real entrepreneur, that happens to all of us.
Yeah, of course.
So when do you get to relax? So even when you go to bed, watch this. Until you train yourself, even when you go to bed, guess what you're thinking about? Work. So you never detach. So you got to build pit stops in daily. I got my simple strategy. I got daily goals. And if I hit them, I get to celebrate. I got weekly goals. If I hit them, celebrate. I got monthly goals, hit them, celebrate. Quarterly goals, hit them, celebrate. Yearly goals, hit them, celebrate. So my cruise, this one, was my yearly celebration of a goal I hit months ago, but I couldn't go on a cruise because the company I was with, we were in a rapid growth phase, and it would have been bad to just go on the cruise at that particular time. So I pushed it back to now. But let me ask you a question, and this is for everybody listening and you personally. What does your celebration cycle look like?
Yeah, I don't have one. I don't have a rhythm.
Yeah, so you got to get a rhythm because it gives you a reason to work. So I bet you like, all right, so you don't have kids yet. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, let's get on it. Just play. So if you had somebody else who was counting on you to hit your goals, they become more important to you. So my kids, I say, hey, where y'all want to go? We want to do this, Dad. Now, my kids are grown, but they still want to do stuff with Dad, which I'm so happy. People don't understand, like when your kids become adults, they don't really want to hang around you like that no more. My kids still like to be around me. So I say, hey, what do y'all want to do? We create a goal. If I hit this, we get to do this. So now, on those days where you don't feel like working, I'm working for something more important than just this. I'm working to get a moment of, remember we talked about it before, happiness with my kids. So I'll work my behind off to take some time off with my kids more than I would work my behind off to take some time off for just me. So now when you can start attaching your internal motivation, internal business drive to an external person that you love, you got any nieces and nephews?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna say who's your favorite niece, so or nephew, but pick your nieces and nephews, however many of them it is, and I want you to do this today. Before you go to sleep, say, if I hit this goal, I want to take my nieces and nephews to this place. And then tell them. And I'm 100% sure they're going to do this. Uncle Akash, when do we get to go? Every time they talk to you, when do we get to go? When do we get to go? When do we get to go? So when do you get to forget about that goal? Never. Because they're not going to forget. Because they want to go. So those days when you feel like, I don't feel like doing this, but you remember they want to go on a vacation, see, that'll give you a little more motivation because you're not just working for you. Because you don't need anything at this point. You got food, you got clothes, you got shelter, you got a car, you got a place to live, got a little extra money, you can have fun, you can go on a vacation. That doesn't take much. But for your nieces and nephews, to take them to an all-expense paid Disney trip and give your sisters and brothers a couple days off or whatever, they'll get excited about that. And then that's something that can drive you. Because we just make goals for ourselves, they don't push us as much because it's just ether. Like if you made 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million or 10 million, your life doesn't change that much. Your life did all the changes it's going to do, Akash, by the time you made, let's say 200,000. Everything you do now, regardless of how big your business is, if you make 200 grand a year, everybody listening, basically, you make 200 grand a year, you can basically do everything. You go on vacation anytime you want, bills, all this, unless you have an outrageous lifestyle. But 200 grand, 250 maybe, that's all it takes, 250 pounds, 250,000 pounds, about it. So now, what's going to drive a person to make, listen to this, what's going to drive a person to make 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million or 3 million? Or if they're trying to get in the best shape of their life, losing 30 pounds will change my life. They don't realize that, but losing 30 pounds will change people's lives. How do I know? Because I lost 20 in my life, just different. I'm not even halfway to where I want to be, but 20 pounds, I'm completely a different person. I feel a little lighter. My pool game has got better. I can concentrate better. I sleep better. I feel better. My skin's clearing up. That's just from 20 pounds. So imagine when I get to 40. And I'm not saying I want to be in elite athlete status, but I can see 10. So I focus on 10. And I got a little celebration plan for when I lose 10 more pounds. And my version, and everybody listen to this because I know Kosh is one of the best in the game. When you lose a certain amount of weight, here's the trigger. You have to keep the weight off for 3 weeks before you can claim that you lost it. That's the way I look at it, because now you stabilize at that weight. I can lose 10 pounds in 4 days right now. I know how to do it. I can just fast, take some diuretics. Boom, I'm 10 pounds. I hit my goal. But the moment I eat some food, it's back. So here's the trick. You want to get to a goal and be able to sustain that level before you claim that level. So
Yeah.
I've lost 20 and I've kept it off. So now I can focus on trying to lose another 10 and then keep that off, then focus on losing another 10 and keep that off. But anybody can get it off, but keeping it off is the trick.
Well, that's why the start of my book is getting in shape is easy, staying in shape is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's perfect. And, financially, same thing. Getting the money is easy. Keeping the money is hard.
Yeah.
It says a fool and his money will soon part. My close friend Manny always jokes and says, I wonder how they got together in the first place, right? So when you look at your success, let's not take money. Let's take health. A fool in their health will soon part and they'll be in bad shape. Any fool can get in shape for a short period of time for a wedding shoot or for this. But can they stay in shape for a long period of time? And so I always say, getting in shape, if it's slow and you stay in shape, that's great. But if you lose it fast, make sure you build those principles so it'll last. So you can do it fast, but building the principles so it'll last. Hey, that rhymes. I'm gonna keep that. So that's the secret. People want fast success, but Kurt Franklin said it best. I'm going to go on a limb here, Kosh. You're Indian, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I learned. I have a friend. They make these really good dals. Like, it's so like that's a lot of people don't realize that's one of my favorite dishes in the whole world. Like,
really?
I love dal. Like, I'm a dal snob, and biryani, I'm a snob on those two things.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Hard. If it ain't from Hyderabad, I'm already second guessing your biryani right off the bat. It's like, what? Where's it from? I don't know. I eat it though, but I'm like really a snob about that, right? And she's the only Indian person who I know who makes dal, and then she puts it in a crock pot. And I said, why would you put that? That's just dumb. Like, you can make that in like 20 minutes. She said, yeah, but it won't taste like mine. I said, why? She said, see, because after I make my dal and I put the crock pot on low, and those juices, that low pressure, and the hits the top and the water drops back in and it repeats that cycle for 8 hours, those flavors get so in tune with each other that it turns into a whole different dish. Same ingredients, different dish. So everybody's basic success is goals, plans, execution over time. But they want that to happen fast. You can have good dal or good success quickly, but to have great success and long-lasting success, you got to let those things turn over like the flavors in that dal over time so that it could be incredible.
That's an analogy I've not heard before.
Yeah, so I think that's really the secret. People realize that they don't factor the time into their goals. They just put a time out there. And one of the 7 iron laws of the universe, as explained in The Science of Getting Rich, is the law of gestation. And the law of gestation states that things will take a certain amount of time regardless of what we think. So I don't care what you say. It's 27 months to produce a new elephant from pregnancy. For a human, it's going to be about 40 weeks if everything happens normally. For a chicken, it's going to be 21 days, and so on and so forth. So when you create a goal, you're birthing something into the universe. But there's a certain amount of time it has to take based on your skill level. So for me to make $10 million would probably take longer than it would take you to make $10 million, because you have a whole team to help you and I'm by myself. But it would take you a whole lot longer to make $10 million than it would take Jay-Z to make $10 million because he has a bigger team. So even though the $10 million itself is the same, the process of gestation or the amount of time it would take will be different based on our talents, our resources, and what we have access to. But I can't base my time on your time. And that's where we get it messed up. So it could be the same goals, same plans, same system, same structure. So the only variables is how hard we're willing to work, how much time we have, and what team we have to help us.
We kind of went on a tangent there somehow when I asked you about when you experienced your breakthrough moment of joy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you were saying you just before COVID.
Just before COVID, the cruise. That's when
Yeah, the
everything
cruise.
changed, because I realized all of these things, the goals, the systems, the plan, and the time. Now was the time. And I realized that I
Oh,
was
that's what
focused on
gave
the
you the
time.
joy. Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
gave me the joy, because it was that time I realized that everything's going to change. I knew it wasn't going to be 2 weeks, but at that
Mm,
time I got peace, because I said, now is the time where I could really dial something in. And for the last 2 years or 3 years at this point, I've been dialing everything in, but I've been at such peace, because at that point I realized that now it's just about execution. And that's what it comes down to, those goals, those plans. And I just realized it's going to take how long it's going to take. And I stopped pressing because of time. And once you don't press because of time and just enjoy the process, which goes back to joy, which goes back to all the other things we already talked about, even though it's a tangent, quote unquote, it's in the right direction. And the right direction is look for joy. And then those other things with time and plans and goals and systems, all that stuff, all those things come together, because now you're at peace to realize it's going to take how long it's going to take. And that's when I realized, I said, okay, I can't go on this cruise. That's fine. What do I have available? And that's when I said, you know what? Now is the time. I can just focus on what I do best, and that's coach and help people create massive incomes. And over the last 3 years, I've helped several dozen people hit $100,000 a month in the industry where that's not very common.
mm. What's if you were chatting to the 20-year-old Korby, what would you tell it?
Life is simple. Don't complicate it. Focus on one thing. And when that thing bears fruit for you, use that fruit to invest in other things, but keep to that one thing. And that's what I learned from like watching Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, or any of these actors or actresses or stars or whatever. Christian Ronaldo's really good at one thing, soccer. Michael Jordan's really good at one thing, basketball. You got all these actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, who's really good at one thing, acting. If you look at, what's her name, who owns the Honest Company, Jessica Alba, they're good at one thing, acting. But they took the fruit from those things and invested them in other things. But during their career, that's all they did. So Jordan only played basketball. He had other people manage those other things. Christian Ronaldo only plays soccer. He has other people manage those other things. He's going to be great as long as he can hear. Tiger Woods, same thing. But they let the fruit from that invest in other things. So as an entrepreneur, I'm going to focus on being the best coach I possibly can, help as many people as I can be successful, and then take the money from that, whatever I earn, and then invest that in other things. But I'm going to continue to be the best coach I can. I'm not going to try to be 60 other things. And that's where people get confused. They want to be a great coach, a great real estate investor, a great crypto guy, a great Forex guy. They want to sell NFTs. They want to, no, just whatever you're going to do, be the best fitness coach you can possibly be. Help as many people as you can, then take the fruits of your labor and invest those in things that can give you a return long-term. That's how I feel. So I would just, if I could talk to my 20-year-old self, hey, Korby, if you think about it, everything I have in my life, 90% of all the money I've ever made has been from the ability to sell. It's the one thing I've always focused on, sales. And that's what I'm really great at. That's what I'm known for. I'm really great at it. I've read more than 700 books on sales, read another maybe 200 or 300 on how the mind works in human psychology, and then everything else. But probably 1,000 books on just those two things, probably taking 50 or 60 courses on just those two things. So that's what a bulk of my concentration comes down to, psychology of selling and how to sell things. And it's produced everything that I have. So in a way, I've kind of followed my own advice, but I never thought about it until just now, based on what you said. But the one thing I would tell anybody listening to this thing, just be great at one thing. A tree is great at one thing, sucking up water and accepting sunlight. That's it. And based on that, look how big they can grow.
Wow,
And that
that's a good
small seed.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just does one thing, suck up some water and nutrients from this earth and accept that sunlight. And all that does is help it grow. That's it. They don't complicate it. They don't try to move down the street. They don't try to, they've been planted here. So sometimes in life, when we think we've been buried, which you asked me way back in the beginning, when I lost everything or started over, most people thought I was being buried. No, God was just planting me. Now it's time for me to grow, sprout.
Oh wow. Yeah. Are you rooted in your faith?
Yeah, absolutely. I think faith is important. And I used to hear this phrase, faith without works is dead. And I used to go, that's a stupid phrase, right? But now that I'm older, everything's based on faith anyway, because your faith in gravity allows you to not hold your furniture. Alexa, off. I don't know. So your faith in gravity allows you to not try to hold your furniture down in your room because you figure gravity is going to work. It's not going to just float up out of the room. Your faith in people understanding how laws work allows you to stand close to the street while cars go by and not expect them to hit you. So faith is always in action. So faith is based on your demonstration of believing in that faith. And so when I realized that, I said, hey, wait a minute. I can always tell if somebody has faith by looking at their results. Because that means you've been acting on that faith to get those results. And if you act on faith in life, you start to get the results. But that's why they say faith without works is dead. Because if you're not acting on it, you don't believe it's true. That's how you can say, do people have faith in fitness? Well, looking at your stomach doesn't say that. But you can't say that I can. You know, that's not for you to say. Like, but if you look at somebody, you can say they don't have faith in fitness. They don't believe that food can help change their life. They don't believe in reps. You can look at them and tell that. But they may be one of the top money managers in the world. So I might go to them because I know they're good at making money because I've seen the demonstration of them being wealthy. But for fitness, I won't go to them. So in your world, same thing. So faith is just based on, you can see the expression of faith by the results in people's lives.
What do you think the older Korby would tell you right now?
The older Korby would tell, well, what I would tell myself, which I've been telling myself for the last 5 months, is now is the time to put my own imprint on my life. And what I mean by that is I built empires for other people. I built some of my own stuff, but I built empires for other people. Now it's time to build my empire. And what I mean by that is to build something that I could put my name on, put my name out to the marketplace in a small way to help just a limited number of people. I don't have grandiose ideas, but I have ideas that I think can really shift people's ability and their perception about how things can be in their life and help them move forward. One of the things I wrote on a cruise ship when I was there, I said, I'm cut a little bit different than most other coaches out here because I have wisdom. I'm old. So I can see way further down the road than most other people. And I made all the mistakes already. And my mistakes and mistakes of my clients, I kind of pruned away a lot of the stuff that's not going to work. So my principles come out from my conversations. That's why I like coaching. Everything can't be put in a course, but from conversations, I can help you improve your situation. So that's what I love. I love coaching conversations to improve people's situations. That's what, no, I didn't mean to do that on purpose, but that's what I would tell myself. Korby, have more conversations with people to help them change their lives. And that's what I'm going to do.
Which is the one conversation that you have more than any other that moves the needle forward for people?
Well, I've had this conversation with you a couple times, the same one. I always ask this magic question. What do you really want, Akash? Because if I know what you really want, I can help you get it. And most people are so terrified to answer that question honestly, because now that they've made it public, they know they got to act on it. So most people don't want to tell you what they really want. And here's what's funny. When you told me about a year ago, this is what I really want, we started focusing on that and you're moving in that direction, and it's happening way faster than even you or I would have thought. That just comes from that conversation. And based on where you are now, you're about to move from this one industry to a grander industry, just based on getting clear about what you want, moving in a direction. And then my job is to keep you from going off course. That's it. That's the beauty of a really powerful coach. My job is to keep you on course. and prevent you from having thoughts and actions that will get you off course. That's what I'm helping you do. That's it. And if I can do that, I'm successful. Most coaches are out here believing that they need to come up with some revolutionary idea. No. The revolution comes in that conversation where I can get you to realize that, hey, what I'm doing is right. Let's keep honing this in and make that work better. Not, hey, boom, but hey, Akash, try this new idea I heard last week, and let's implement it in what you're doing. No. What we're doing is working. How can we make it work better? And that's what a great coach would do. So for me, I always say it's about helping people improve over time and not help them keep them from being distracted.
Yeah. Why do you think that question, what do you really want, is so difficult for
For me?
anyone? Not, yeah, what for when you asked that, you said you asked that question more than any other time.
Because people don't give thought to what they actually want. Most people's goals are based on what other people's goals are. So I have a close friend who's doing very well. And oh, let's have some fun. We talked about this on one of our calls. So it's okay to look once, right?
Yeah.
But when you see it, you go take a good look. But when you look twice and start to covet and want something when somebody else is getting, that alters what you want. Yeah, because what you want is what you want. But now, if I compare what I want, and I have a clear idea what I want to have like a business that does a little bit more than $1 million a year. That's my goal. Now, once I get there for that one particular business, I would say, okay, am I happy here or do I want to grow bigger? But for me to think about, let's just fantasize here. Let's say you wanted a $100 million company. Now I'm comparing my ambition to your ambition. So now what I want gets altered because I feel like I'm better than you. So I would have been perfectly content at $1 million, but now I want a $10 million business because you want a $100 million business. Because I should be at least as 10% as good as you. But that's where everybody goes wrong. That's why they don't know what they want, because they're looking to external factors to determine what they want internally. That's why all rappers, well, most rappers used to have big chains because other rappers had big chains, right? There's no reason to have a $400,000 chain made of bad diamonds, because if those diamonds are any good quality, why does a small diamond on Beyonce's hand cost $5 million and you can get a whole chain like this with thousands of diamonds and it's only 400,000? So listen closely to this. It's the quality, not the quantity. So the quality of what you want is the most important, not the quantity of what somebody else has. I just want quality. I don't care about quantity. And that's what's so hard. People want quantity based on, they determine their quantities from somebody else. They don't think about what's going to make them have a quality life.
How can you cut through the fat so you're not?
Oh man, calories.
That's one
How
way.
could you cut through the fat? The easiest way to cut through the fat is you got to ask yourself, and this is a good one for everybody. Every day, wake up, write down this question: what do I really want? And then just write for 5 minutes every day. But then when you do it, you turn the page over to the back of the journal, get an old-fashioned notebook so you can turn it all the way over, and you never look at what you wrote yesterday, and do that for 30 days, and then go back through your notes. And you'll see patterns of something you want over and over, and then you'll see other things. But if you see one thing keep appearing over and over on every page, you probably really want that thing. That's what I learned. So when I do this exercise with clients in the life coaching realm, I say, let's just do this for 30 days. And after 30 days, you're going to say all kinds of crazy stuff. But some things will keep appearing, and some things will keep appearing. And if you let your mind be free every day when you do it, and not try to remember what you wrote yesterday so you can write it today, you're going to see certain things keep appearing.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're a master life coach as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So that's where I originally cut my teeth as a life coach. So what do you really want? And you can always tell with somebody if you're getting close when I'm coaching, because they'll start wiggling a lot. They start moving around because they're uncomfortable because they know they're going to have to do something to be something. And, you know, I like to have conversations that make people uncomfortable so they can confront what's confounding them. Yeah, and that's those conversations. It's not like in a bad way, but there's more out there. When I hang up the phone, that's when coaching starts. Coaching doesn't happen on the phone. It happens when you hang up, bang. Now coaching starts because you have to go put that into reality, then come back with me with results, and then we fix it and move it forward. But on the phone, it's just beautiful conversation. Coaching happens when we hang up the phone. So the way you cut through the fat is simple. One sentence: take action, make corrections. Yeah, but that's how it happens. Most people are scared to take the action because now you have to admit this worked or this didn't work. Notice I didn't say failed or succeeded. Most people think of something failing and not failing. It either worked or it didn't work. So we change what didn't work and try to get it to work. That's it. But I don't look at things as failure. Failure is when you give up. That's it. If you don't give up, you didn't fail. Just try something else that, different way to try it. That's it. And when you do that, you're going to start seeing yourself be more at peace as you work through this process. Peace comes from the process. That's what I've learned over the years. Peace comes from the process. And in that process, that's when you cut through the fat because you find that peace like, I love doing this. I used to think that I wanted to have you don't laugh at this. I used to think I wanted to have a coaching program with 500 people in it. And I realized that won't give me peace. That was hard for me to learn about 4 years ago. And what I realized is I want to have a small coaching program with people who really want to change their life. And I want to have like maybe 20 or 30 private clients and then have a course and do some group coaching. Like just a really small course, really low cost, have a course and then do like live coaching calls where I can talk to people like this, have a really low membership and not really care about the money, donate most of it to charity. And then just really focus on the 20 main clients that I have to really help them move forward. That's what I want. Because that's going to give me joy, being in the trenches. Like when you work out. What I learned is I don't like working out with music. I used to think I did. But now, as I'm older, it's something about just the background noise of people talking and me dialing in on my tempo and all this kind of stuff. I realized that's where the peace come from. I realized the music was a distraction, keep me from connecting to my mind, which I call that mind-muscle connection, whatever that fancy, whatever that is. Yeah, so now I can connect to what I'm doing. As in being a coach, I can connect. So what I want is something small, something intimate that I can work with people one-on-one. That's what I want. I don't want a massive thing. I'll have a massive group, but it's going to be controlled by group calls. But when I want to go just deep with one person and just see them through from beginning to the next level of their business or whatever, that's what I love that process. Nothing gives me more joy than that, to see people go for their dreams and achieve them. And one thing I always say, I'm just a nobody helping people become somebody. And I just want to be a little bit of that nobody and somebody story. That's it. That's what I really want. And if God sees fit that, hey, Korby, that's not enough. I want you to be here. And he makes that decision, I'm okay with it. But I would be happy with this little plot of land here. And I will tend to it and I will grow it to the best of my ability. And I'm okay with that. I don't need a 1,000-acre farm. I just need this 1 acre. And if God says, no, we need your message to reach more people, I'm going to let that happen. But it'll be on his terms, not my terms. Yeah.
It's powerful. What, as a closing sentiment, what's one thing you want the listener to take away from this podcast?
I think the most important thing to take away from this podcast is you can do it. And I don't mean it just like, listen closely. You, let's take the first word out of that, you. That means you personally, the person listening to this podcast, have to determine what you want. Can. Take that word can and think of 3 or 4 things you can do every day to move forward towards that goal. Do something every day that you can track to make sure that you're doing it. And once you know what it is, take action on a consistent basis so you can do it. So when you listen to that, remember those 4 little key things in there so that you can move forward on a daily basis. And if you believe you can do it, remember, that means you have faith in the ability to do it. So that means if you have faith, what does that mean from previous? You're going to take action because you believe it's going to happen, just like gravity keeps you safe, right? So that's the faith part. Then if you back it up, you have goals, plans, and structures to help you do that. And then realize that setbacks are going to be part of the comeback. So just accept the setbacks and keep moving forward. But if you focus on that, you can do it, that's going to make all the difference for you. And remember, your journey is your journey, not someone else's journey. That's what I would tell people.
Amazing. Where can people find out more about some of your work and what you're up to?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at Coach Korby. So COACH, Korby, KORBY, or I like to jokingly say, keep on running by yourself, KORBY. So I'm at Coach Korby on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. And I'll be launching a new course in January for people to focus on the key aspects to help them move their businesses forward. Because there's a lot of stuff out there. I want to just add something new to the game.
Amazing. Well, Korby, you're one of the most wise men I know. So thank you for sharing your wisdom today. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on this podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.